Hello and welcome to the West Ham Transfer Rumour Show, where we take a look at all the latest gossip over the last few days and see who's been linked with moves to the Hammers over the summer transfer window. Doesn't mean it's true, doesn't mean we even believe it, but that's what the rumours are saying. Now, we've got quite a big list this Monday morning to get through, and while there's a lot of names on it, there's not necessarily any new names. A lot of it's recycled, updates to previous rumours, but I think that's what's to be expected at this point. Obviously, Declan Rice has now finally joined Arsenal. We've finally got the money in the bank, and we can finally now crack on making our bids and start improving our squad ahead of the new season. Tim Steidten arrived a couple of weeks ago now. I think it's fair to expect in the last fortnight West Ham have finalised some of the top targets for the main positions. I understand if maybe we want a right back but we haven't quite decided which one to go for. I get that, because you're going to want to deal with your defensive midfield first and then see how much of the budget is used up. Plug in the holes, that is top priority. But in the last week, I think it's fair to expect West Ham to know which defensive midfield / centre midfielders they want to go for. And I think it's also fair that in the next week or so, we start launching formal bids for those players that we have potentially been inquiring about over the last fortnight. So West Ham's transfer activity is expected to get underway now. So some of the names are going to crop back up again. The reason I believe a lot of these, and there's a little confliction here, it's because of those reporting some of those names. So the likes of Álvarez, Palhinha, I don't see us buying both. Surely not. Surely we're not way to spend 75, 80 million on two proper defensive midfielders. I can't see it. But those reporting, a lot of these names we're being linked with are usually really reliable when it comes to either West Ham specific news, such as ex-West Ham player Sean Whetstone, or just general football transfer news, such as Fabrizio Romano and David Ornstein. A lot of those are all over these transfer rumours, so I'm believing a lot of it actually. But let's get into it, and we're going to start with Harry Maguire, because that's the big one in the last 24 hours. We've been linked to him for probably 13, 14 months now, and David Moyes is sort of known to be an admirer of Harry Maguire. Of course he will be. Why wouldn't he be? I think Harry Maguire is a great centre-back. It's no surprise that Moyes might think he's a great centre-back too. I've not got an issue with that. But we're being linked to him, and it's sort of heated up in the last 24 hours because Maguire did that tweet, which is essentially a statement saying he's no longer captain of Man United. Bruno Fernandes is now Ten Hag's captain. It probably verifies the rumours from Man U that Ten Hag has a handful of players that he's wanting to sell this summer, such as Maguire, McTominay, we'll get on to him, Fred. So there's a few players he wishes to offload, bring funds in so he can start reinvesting it into his playing squad. So this probably confirms that Maguire is transfer listed but without being transfer listed at Man United. And naturally there's now links to West Ham. He's been rumoured to be of interest to West Ham. Now the only way I would like to see this happen is if there's a formation change. And Moyes will know what he wants to do next season. Does he want to play three at the back? And I know we played it against Perth, but I take that with a pinch of salt. I think that's David Moyes playing personnel rather than formation. I think he just wanted to give Ings and Scamacca the first half. So the best way to do it is to play two up front. So you work backwards. You've got plenty of centre-backs with you in Australia, so you're going to want to play three centre-backs so they can all play in their natural positions. So I'm taking this formation so far from pre-season with a pinch of salt. Now when Paqueta and Agard return from their extended break and we keep playing it, then I might believe it. If we play against Stade Rennais and Leverkusen, then I might start, okay, this is what we're going to do next season. But until that point, I'm taking it with a pinch of salt. But if that's what David Moyes wants to do, then Maguire would be a clever signing. The price tag will be bulky. I don't think it'll be the 40 million, which is the rumour going round at the minute. But I do think it'll be over 25, because while he's 30 and that's deemed old, centre-backs tend to play a little bit longer. Maguire also, he's never had pace, he's never relied on it, and that's something you tend to lose as you get on a bit. But like Craig Dawson never relied on pace, so it was fine. He suited the way the West Ham play. Maguire, I think, would suit the way that we play under David Moyes. If we needed a centre-back, if we didn't have a Gerd, I think Maguire would be a great sign, and having that leadership with him as well, I think he'd be good. But if we're going to play four at the back, I don't want to see this transfer happen. Now, what I will say, just because you don't want a transfer to happen doesn't mean you don't rate the player. Now, a lot of people will be watching this not rating Harry Maguire at all. I won't get loads of arguments about Maguire. But there's other players in the past where we've been linked to in the summer, and someone in the comments might say, I don't want him for whatever reason. And someone say, yeah, but he's a really good player. It doesn't mean you don't think he's a good player. You might not want him because of the cost, because of the age profile, because of that player's strengths. You might think that's not the type of player we need for whatever reason. It doesn't mean you think he's a bad player. You just don't think he's the right player for West Ham. Maguire at 30 million, it'd be too expensive. I don't think we need to spend 30 million on a centre-back unless we're going to be changing to 3 at the back. Even then, I'd prefer Kerr to get a stab at it. I think he deserves it. But you wouldn't want to play 3 at the back with just those 4. Zouma, Aguerd, Kerr and Ogbonna as your cover. You'd want another 1 or 2 players in there. I know Creswell and Johnson can play centre-back, but you would need another real first-team centre-back. But if we're playing 4, we don't need a first-team centre-back. That's why I really like the link to Harry Bellis. I think that's the perfect type of profile. Someone that's going to come in that could be first choice in a couple of years' time. Will get game time here and there over the season just to get him into the Premier League, get him that experience that he requires. And I think that's where your profile needs to be a younger one. Whereas in defensive midfield, that's not quite the case. Now, before I get on to those links, this video is sponsored by the OneFootball app. I like to think you've been watching Hammers Chat for, let's say, over a year now. You know we don't promote anything that we will not use or buy ourselves. We've not had a sponsor for quite a few months now. HelloFresh once a month, and that was it. We've also got ETC on the forum channel, but unless we'll use it, we won't promote it. We turn down a lot of brand deals because we don't believe in that product or we don't want to promote it for whatever reason. We turn them down. But OneFootball is an app we are genuinely delighted to work with and to promote. The reason being, we use it ourselves every single day. If you tune into mine and Gonzo's videos regularly, you'll hear us reference the OneFootball app when we're not working with them, because we do genuinely use it. It's completely free. Get it downloaded. Please use the link in the description below, the QR code on your screen right now, because then they know you've come from Hammers Chat and they think, hey, good work, Hammers Chat, nice one. You got that person download the app. Thank you very much. So please do use our links and QR codes to download it. Like I said, it's completely free. If you go on there right now, top story is Fabrizio Romano's roundup of all things West Ham United, including the Harry Maguire stuff. If you scroll down, West Ham have been linked to Scott McTominay. We'll get on to him. There's a preview ahead of our game against Spurs tomorrow, because it's not just transfer rumours on the app, it's everything. Injury news, results, fixtures, everything you need to follow your club is on that app. So get it downloaded using the link in description below. Now, moving on to defensive midfielder side of it. And this is where it's conflicting, because we're not going to buy both of these. But there's a lot of rumours that we will be bidding €40 million for Edson Álvarez of Ajax and £40 million for João Palhinha of Fulham. Now, unlike the Maguire one, I get why we would go for the lowest risk possible. I think at centre-back, you can take a risk with Harwood Bellis. I think you can do that. Defensive midfield, I get why Moyes or West Ham in general does not want to take a risk here, because filling that hole in defensive midfield that Declan Rice has vacated is massive. Now, Moyes has said himself, who we buy will not replace Declan Rice like for like. You can't do it. We cannot do it. So what we are going to do, by the looks of it, is bring in a proper defensive midfielder that's going to protect that back four, whose strengths are tackling, interceptions, reading the game. As I always say, discipline, that's not applicable to either of these two players. But perhaps their weakness is that creativity, that possession side of it. We're sacrificing that. What Declan Rice could do with the ball, we're sacrificing that in order to focus what Declan Rice could do without the ball. And Palhinha and Alvarez both fit this. And I get why Moyes wants to go get Palhinha. If he does, I completely get it. 40 million is the new rumoured price tag. It feels a lot more realistic. Will Fulham accept that? I don't know. I think a large part of it possibly depends on if they sell Mitrovic. If they do, then they'll have plenty of money coming in. They won't need to sell Palhinha. But this could help fund a rebuild for them. We're going to have a mini rebuild. Fulham would be able to have a mini rebuild using 40 million for Palhinha. And I think it's low risk. We know he's one of the best defensive midfielders in the Premier League last season. We know he's we assume he's enjoying life in London. So in terms of risk, there's not much attached to the Palhinha one. Obviously that comes at a cost. You're buying a 28-year-old for 40 million. You know what you're doing. You're wiping off the 40 million, basically saying we're going to get this guy in, we're going to get a handful of years out of him at the top of his game, but we're okay with that. And I get it. I completely get it. The probability of Palhinha working at West Ham compared to Alvarez is probably greater. It will be greater. It's sort of Premier League tax, isn't it? As for Alvarez, well, we've been linked to him for 40 million years. I quite like him. The thing with Alvarez, and do you know something? I'd include Palhinha in this as well. I've got this worry at the minute that we've got a manager with a year to go on his contract. So what is the long-term plan here? Can we go and buy players that Moyes really, really wants if we intend on getting rid of David Moyes in 12 months' time? I think it's a bit of a stupid thing to do. It's a little bit silly because you're only going to cause yourself problems next summer. Unless you're going to go for the exact same type of manager. Maybe the profile that David Moyes is the manager we're going to target to replace David Moyes and therefore can continue using David Moyes players. But it's hard to believe that. You get the feeling that there will be a change next summer. We will perhaps go for a more progressive manager. So this summer is a difficult one to balance. They've got to bring in players that Moyes wants and Moyes will use, but you could also see playing under a different manager 2024, 2025. I think Palhinha and Álvarez both tick that box in all honesty. That's why Harvey Barnes, I think, ticks that box as well. Now let's fly through some more rumours or we'll be here all day. Scott McTominay, we're being linked to him again, as well as James Ward-Prowse and Zakaria. Now the latest with Zakaria is still the same as it was, which is West Ham want to loan him, Juventus want to sell him. I was quite confident in this a week ago, 2 weeks ago, when there was a lot of rumours and it was being reported by De Marzi over in Italy. I was inclined to believe that, but for whatever reason, it seems to have just quietened down a little bit for whatever reason. Maybe it's because we have investigated his injury record and we're not too keen on it. Maybe it's because we want to loan him with no obligation. Juve aren't too happy with that. I seen Juventus, there was a list of players that don't have a future at Juventus now, Bonucci being the highest profile on there, but Zakaria was on there as well, so was McKennie, who was on loan at Leeds last season. Ward-Prowse and Scott McTominay, there's no updates really, just West Ham are interested in those two players. But one of the new ones is that Wolves like Areola. A lot of talk that Jose Sa is leaving Wolves, so they could need a new goalkeeper, and Areola is possibly one they are looking at. Now, obviously, I don't want him to go at all. I really do not want to see us sell Areola. I think I'd speak about causing problems in a year's time. I think that's exactly what you'd be doing if you sold Areola, because Fabianski can't keep playing. Last summer, I thought this might be his last season. This summer, I'm thinking this is surely his last season. We don't know who the number one is next season yet. We won't find out until we kick off the Premier League campaign. But I don't want to see Areola go. He knows the club. We know Areola. He's done absolutely nothing wrong. The only reason he is not number one is because Fabianski's bloody good. That's it. That's all there is to it. Fabianski had Moyes' trust. So for Areola to sort of steal the gloves, he needs Fabianski to do something majorly wrong so Moyes no longer trusts him. It's not happened yet. He's had a few bad games, Fabianski. I'm not saying he's perfect. He's had a few bad ones. But I can't recall him having 2 bad games in a row, Fabianski. If he does a couple of howlers or he has a stinky game, the following week he tends to put in a man-of-match performance. So I think the only reason Areola hasn't yet succeeded Fabianski is because Fabianski's good. It doesn't mean we don't have a long-term plan. It doesn't mean we don't want Areola. It's just that he struggled to get ahead of Lucas in the pecking order. I get it. Hopefully there's nothing in this one, but I can understand why Wolves would be looking at Areola or any other club. Top keeper, not number one. There's an opportunity to go get him. A bit like Dean Henderson at Man United. He's a top keeper, but he's not their number one choice though, especially with Onana signing up. There's a good goalkeeper there for someone to go get. Bournemouth. I'm switching to Bournemouth transfer news here because it ties in with who we've been linked with. Kerkez, the Alkmaar left back. The latest is that Bournemouth are sort of like close to signing him. Personal terms are agreed and they're just sort of working on the latter part of the deal with Alkmaar, and then they'll be signing Kerkez. But not only that, they're bidding for Alex Scott. They bid 15 million for Alex Scott. That got rejected. Wolves bid 20 million for Alex Scott. That also got rejected. So if our interest in Alex Scott is genuine, then we're going to have to start bidding, because Percy, who I think is a really reliable journalist, he just doesn't do many updates when it comes to transfer news, but he's the one on the Wolves and Alex Scott thing, and he said that Wolves are thinking about going back in, but other Premier League clubs are now expected to get involved. Hopefully West Ham will be one of them. In regards to Harvey Barnes, again, it's more the other club, which is Newcastle. They have to sell St Maximin before that they can bring in Harvey Barnes. That's good news for West Ham, should our interest be genuine. Fabrizio Romano suggested that he's not too sure about West Ham's interest in Barnes. It's a player we like, but Newcastle are still, despite needing to sell first, they're still firm favourites for signing Harvey Barnes. Amrabat, Fiorentina defensive midfielder, who had an excellent final. I think he was actually the best player in the final. I've watched the final back twice now, and I think he was possibly man of match out of both teams. I think he was fantastic in front of the defence. His distribution was superb. The pass for Fiorentina's goal was brilliant. Not something we've seen from Declan Rice. There you go. I'm not just saying that because Rice has left now. I think it's fair to say there's general consensus Rice wasn't the most creative player. I think that's a fair thing. That's why a lot of people have been hesitant about him. But Amrabat's pass was superb. But anyway, we were linked to him briefly, and when I say briefly, I mean very briefly. So we were linked to him for 35 million. But in the exact same articles, it said that Amrabat doesn't want to replace Declan Rice, which is a really weird term. Not that he doesn't want to come to West Ham, he just want to replace Declan Rice. Maybe he ain't got the bottle. So it was a brief rumour I got excited about, and then the next paragraph, the excitement was gone, taken away from me. Tyler Adams is another player we're still being linked to. Leeds United centre midfielder, has a 30 million release clause. So I think that's interesting. With that knowledge, if it's true, which we will know if it's true or not, with that knowledge, this is where you can negotiate. Let's just say he was third or fourth choice target, hypothetically. You can negotiate with Ajax and Fulham, knowing that should you not fancy those deals, you've got a guy you can go get just like that. You know how much he is, you can go get that. I like him. I do like Tyler Adams quite a bit, actually. When I seen him last season, I don't recall him having too many bad games. And when I seen Leeds without him, I remember thinking that they were missing him. And I always think that's one of the biggest compliments you can give a player. When you don't play, it's obvious. The team misses you, and it's obvious the team's missing you. And I think you could apply that to Tyler Adams. The problem is the bar was quite low. They got relegated, so it was quite a low standard at Leeds, but I do think Adams had an okay season despite everything. Just like Jack Harrison, I think Harrison had an okay season despite Leeds going down. I wouldn't be against Adams coming to West Ham. When you start comparing it to Palhinha for 40 million, Alvarez for 36 million or whatever it would cost, maybe there's more value in there. I do think the ability at the minute between Adams, I think Palhinha is more likely to be better next season than Adams, if that makes sense. But Adams has obviously got a few years on him, so maybe he'd be the better investment. But if you want results right now, which is what I think we do, Palhinha would probably be the obvious shout for this one. And lastly, we're going to finish it up with another player being linked with a move away, which is Pablo Fornals. I'm not going to go into it, but he's been linked to Real Betis, obviously managed now by Pellegrini, who brought Fornals to West Ham from Villarreal. So that's a bit of a sporadic link. It's not been too strong, but he has been linked with a move to La Liga. Anyway, I told you there was a lot of names, and I told you there wasn't many new ones, but that is the West Ham transfer rumours over the last few days. But hopefully in the next few days we can start getting formal bids in for whoever it is we've decided to go for. The one thing I will say going through this list, it's not very Steiden, is it? There's no Tim Steiden player on there. It all feels like players that we would have targeted under Rob Newman and David Moyes. So that's one of two things. One, Steiden's not getting involved yet, or two, we just don't know, which I'm hoping. I'm hoping there's a few players that we're going after. It's just not out there in the public domain, and it will be a couple of Steiden players. And I think that would be the healthy balance for West Ham this window: a Palhinha and a Harwood Bellis, and then a couple of punts from Tim Steiden's long list of players. But anyway, there's the players we've been linked to. I'd be surprised if we didn't sign at least two. I think we could sign two of these, Alvarez or Palhinha, and it wouldn't surprise me if we had one of those centre midfielders, whether it be McTominay, Ward-Prowse or Zakaria. If I told you right now we were going to sign Palhinha and Ward-Prowse, I think you'd be inclined to believe it. I certainly would anyway. But anyway, I'm going to disappear now. Please drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to Hammers Chat. Get that OneFootball app downloaded. We'll be back tomorrow. We're playing Spurs in a friendly, so we'll be back tomorrow with our coverage of the game. Build-up show, watch-along and review. 11 AM kick-off UK time, I think. So that means we'll be live at 10:30 on this channel. So see you then. Have a good day.